All right. Please be seated. It's great to see everybody here tonight, here in the at the headquarters of the Peaceful Solution, and also for those of you that are online and tuning in also. This is a great thing. The classes are free. Even the books, if you download them, for those of you that are on the internet, you can download them online there, the ones that we've been through and are going through. And as time goes on, you'll be able to get the other books as we get to them. But for now, you can download them and save them on your computer and use them as we need to. And so tonight, can you show the first slide, please? The intro. Okay. So for tonight, we'll be in the respect unit. And that's the book that we're in, and actually we just got started in it. We're up to about page 31 or so, so we got quite a bit to go. So I encourage you to keep on. And we'll review just a little bit of what we've been through, not too much, just a tiny bit, and then we'll move on. But first, what I'd like to do is to go to Lesson Plan 2, page D. Lesson Plan 2, page D. And this is the procedures, this is the guide for you as teachers, those striving to be teachers. This is the guidelines for us to help us through, to stay in an organized manner, in presenting the program. So let's look at procedure number 6. And this might have already been read at this point, but we're going to do it again. Explain to students that self-respect is an important positive character trait that they should strive to develop. They can do so by appreciating that they are all unique individuals with talents and potential. Have students complete the exercise on page 31 of their handbooks, which we are going to do here momentarily, and have students share some of their talents and abilities as well as what positive character traits they value and why. Now, we won't be sharing verbally these things, but you can, at this time, because of the classroom situation, but you can fill it out yourself and look at it and compare and see, where you're at on this as far as self-respect. And then it goes on to say, have students read the self-respect can be a part of your character section found on page 32 of your handbooks, which we are going to be doing, like I said, here shortly. But first of all, can you go ahead and show slide 2, please? Okay, slide number 2. I don't know if y'all can read that. Looks a little jumbled on the screen up there, but if you have your book, and like I said, you can download it also if you're with us online. But at the very part of this page, now this is from the respect unit, and we're backing up to page 25 for a moment to the introduction. It kind of gives you an overview of what we're doing here and why we're in this section. And this is something that you will want to get across to the students too, because, why are we doing it? Well, look at on the block at the very top, it says, I am part of the human race. I belong to the most intelligent life form on planet Earth. I'm special and unique, and I'm worthy of respect. Now, this is chapter 2, Respect for Myself, and this is the introduction. If you look at that first sentence, this is an amazing sentence. The greatest thing you can value is life. Now, that's been something that I've always felt very strongly about. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but I've always felt very strongly about that, and even to the point where, well, let me put it this way. The military of the world, and I'm not condemning anybody for being in the military. That's what you've chosen to do, and that's your choice. But sometimes people make choices without being totally informed and without being educated, which is the number one positive character trait in the Peaceful Solution program, is to get educated. So the greatest thing you can value is life. Now, a lot of people value pride over life. They value money over life. They value status in the community over life. Many people have been killed for a very small amount of money. and they've been killed for personal gain, self-centeredness, self-interest, and so forth. But you should value life more than anything. Nothing else is worth a life. It's the highest value. Now, when you value your own life, you have respect for yourself. So we're not just talking about others here, we're talking about you and others. Having self-respect will enable you to handle life's challenges in a positive way and avoid making decisions that could have a negative impact on your life. Now, notice it says having self-respect will enable you. It doesn't say it might. It says it will enable you to handle life's challenges in a positive way. So right there, it looks like something that you might want to have, right? So developing self-respect is much like a muscle that grows stronger from regular exercise. Developing, that means you have to work on it. You have to develop self-respect. It's not something that you say, hey, I think I'll have self-respect today. It just doesn't work like that. You have to work on it. You have to know what it is and how to do it. One of the best ways to start respecting your life is to value it. So let's say it together. Are y'all ready? We're going to say this together. 1, 2, 3. It's great to be alive. So for those of you that didn't have a book and didn't know what we were doing, let's say it one more time. All right? We're going to say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. It's great to be alive. All right. It is great to be alive because you're actually doing something. You're experiencing things. You have the opportunity to learn, to experience life and experience everything life has to offer. So it's great to be alive, no matter what your situation is. And I assure you, for everyone I know, and I would say most of the people here in the States, I would say that our lives could not be anywhere as near hard as many others, in other countries especially. Now, when you learn how to respect yourself, you will have an even greater appreciation of the need to respect others. So you will have a greater appreciation of the need to respect others. So if you don't have that appreciation of it, if you really don't care if you respect others or not, guess what? When you learn to respect yourself, you will. So the combination of respecting yourself and others will enable you to interact in healthy, meaningful ways. And in this chapter, you will learn that self-respect includes controlling your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, that's self-control. So if you could look at this, if you could go back to the camera for a minute there. There's our stop sign right there. Stop, think, consider your options, and proceed with the right choice. That's self-control. You got to stop and evaluate things, you know. You got to think about it. But controlling your thoughts, feelings, and actions is the thing that you have to do. And there's all kinds of things out there to put a kink in that, you know, many influences. But you'll also learn that you demonstrate self-respect by the way you dress, walk, and talk. So think about that for a minute. The way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk. So what you say to people, the way you walk, your walk in life and the things you do, and the way you dress. Yes, there is a thing called modesty that you might think of now and then. So your ability to respect yourself should be clearly seen in your every action and interaction. And you can look at the little thing at the bottom, it's the young lady sitting there. I'm willing to improve myself, aiming to be my very best. Okay, you can take that slide now. So we're going to be moving on to page 31. And I can't really stress the importance of the self-control in all of this. Excuse me. Without self-control, it's not likely that you would be able to do anything. You know, it's without self-control, you wouldn't be able to practice the discipline that it takes to be able to learn, develop, and practice self-respect. And that's what we're trying to get to. Now we're going to go ahead and turn to page 31 in the respect unit. You can put up that slide, please. Then it's the next slide. There you go. And William's already talked a little bit about this. He got about halfway down. We're just going to start at the top again, briefly go through it. But when you take the time to evaluate who you are as an individual, as well as what you value, now we just got through talking about values too, didn't we? In fact, we're going to skip forward on a slide. Can you go to the next slide? And we'll be coming back to this one. If you can go to the next slide. There you go, values. So while we're here, it says evaluate who you are as an individual as well as what you value. So we're going to look at values. Values are what you believe in or feel strongly about, and they also play a key role in developing your character. The sum total of everything you value becomes your value system. So these are the things, they're kind of in order. If you value life as the highest thing, that'll be up at the top. Then if you value family next or whatever it might be, on down the line, different people have a different set of values. But you should be valuing that life, all life, right up there at the top. Now we're not going to read that whole thing, but there, down at the bottom, next to the last paragraph, it says there are many different types of values as there are people. No two people are alike, not even members of the same family. And based on experiences and interactions, we come to value different things. So that's all we're going to do there on that page. Let's go back to the previous slide. There is only one you, the previous slide. There you go. All right. So you're less likely to make choices that could result in risky behavior. And amongst many things, there is, premarital relations, abusing alcohol, or using illegal drugs, and so forth. And when someone firmly believes that you should build a positive moral character and have positive values, he is less likely to give in to negative influences. Now, that's a big deal right there, not giving in to negative influences. So it just said when you firmly believe that you should have a positive moral character and have positive values, you're less likely to give in. And so then the second paragraph starts out and says, the process of learning to show respect for yourself begins when you appreciate that you are a unique individual. Although you and a sister or brother or friend might have similar characteristics, there's only one you. And that in itself is a big deal. Who you are is a combination of your physical traits, character, personality, and abilities. So it's this combination thing. As William said the last class, it's synergistic, When you stop to consider all the things that make you who you are, you will find that there is more to you than you even realize. And it has an exercise there. It says, complete the exercise below by filling in the blanks and think about the questions carefully before writing down a response, and you might find out something new about yourself. So the question begs, who are you? Who are you? And so if you look at it there, it says there is only one me, has a place for your name. My full name is, and you would write your name and your age, you're, so many years old there. The color of your eyes, the food you like, that might take a minute to think about. For me, it would be very easy, but the colors I like best are, and then your hobbies, and what you really think you're great at. And this isn't asking you to be all prideful and everything. It's just asking the question what you believe that you're pretty great at. What you don't like to do, and then also write down some of your abilities and talents. And this will help you to see that, hey, I'm a person of value. There is value here. I know how to do these things. Some people might not even know how to do the things you do, no matter what it is. Now, a positive character trait that you value is, and you could choose one or two or more, and then explain it. And if you could change one thing about your character, it would be, and of course you could put that down too. All right. So let's move on to the next slide. Self-respect can be a part of your character. There you go. All right. So we're still in the respect unit, and at the very top of page 32 in your respect unit, it says, remember, this is your life we are talking about. You are in the driver's seat now. Consider which direction you want your life to go. And of course, it has the little cartoon-looking thing right there that shows, negative or positive, and it's, guiding or giving you the choice to go one way or another. And that's one thing to remember about the peaceful solution. Nobody's forcing anything on you. We don't force anybody to choose to, or force anybody to go negative or positive. We don't force anybody to come to the classes. You have your choice, whether you're online or here at the headquarters. You have your choice to do whichever one you want to do. And that's a neat thing about the peaceful solution. We put it out there for you. We tell you about it. We try to get you to look at the possible consequences or rewards that could come forth. All of us have those things that have occurred in our life that we can go back and look at that were either positive or negative because of some crazy thing we did or because of something that we did that was right. So self-respect can be a part of your character. Notice it can be a part of your character. There are many people that don't have self-respect in this world. It can be a part of your character. So evaluating yourself, and remember evaluating, you have to think about it. You have to stop and look at these things. And the previous page, page 31, gave us the opportunity to do a little bit of evaluation there, to look at some of the things that we like, some of the things we don't like, some of our abilities and talents and so forth. So evaluating yourself and what is important to you as an individual is essential. That means you really need to do it in achieving self-respect. Remember, people who have self-respect will not allow others to talk them into doing something that is morally wrong. I want to read that one more time. Remember, people who have self-respect will not allow others to talk them into doing something that is morally wrong. Even if everyone is for it that you're around, if you know that it's morally wrong, then you don't let others talk you into doing it. You can begin to acquire self-respect by setting high standards and living up to them. Now, setting a standard is something that you shoot for. It's like the thing that you go for. You set the standard. In all types of the craftsman type trades, there are standards that people go by. If you're a welder, there's standards that you must meet to be like an underwater welder, or to be, certain types of metals, to weld cast iron or what have you. There's certain standards you have to meet to be able to do some of the harder things. And I don't know much about welding, so I might have mentioned the easiest things. I don't know. I think those are some of the harder things, but that standard. Now we're talking about moral standards. So you can begin to acquire self-respect by setting high standards and living up to them. Notice, moral standards include not cheating. Get that? Boys, not cheating. Not cheating, lying, or stealing. I'm not saying that anybody is. It's just that as you're growing up and you're a little bit younger, sometimes you go through some things like that and you learn your way. You learn what the standards are and what you should be doing. And for some of us older folks too, guess what? No cheating. No cheating, lying, or stealing. Be honest and fair with others. Be honest and fair with yourself. For example, if someone asks you to do something you know is wrong or you don't feel comfortable doing, then be honest by first admitting to yourself, then to your friend, that you do not agree with his or her suggestion. If someone asks you to do something you know is wrong or you don't feel comfortable doing, then be honest by first admitting to yourself, then to your friend, or your enemy, whichever one, that you do not agree with his or her suggestion. Stand up for what's positive and morally correct. Stand up for it. And you demonstrate self-respect by being humble and seeking ways to improve yourself. Now, self-respect means accepting that you don't know everything. Guess what? That's hard for some people. There are people that think they are absolutely right about everything that comes out of their mouth. You might have met people like that before. There might be people that think they know everything about every subject. You might have met people like that before. I assure you, there's not anything that any of us know everything about. That we need to keep learning in every aspect, every field. Things are constantly changing. So we don't know it all. We don't know everything. This is a healthy attitude that will enable you to continue learning new things about yourself, others, and the world around you. A humble person, notice a humble person, and that is one of the great positive character traits that the Peaceful Solution does teach wholeheartedly. A humble person is also willing to accept being wrong and learn from his or her mistakes. That means that even if you're wrong, even if you didn't know you were wrong and someone points it out and is willing to help you see where you went wrong, willing to learn from your mistakes, that's a great thing. And hopefully the person that's pointing out possibly a problem that you have would be willing to take the time and compassion and effort to show you where you're wrong and help you learn. So respect yourself enough to remain humble and teachable. That's extremely important. One of the things that can stop us from getting there and stop us from being humble and stop us from practicing self-control is influences. And we need to guard against those all the time. In fact, if you'll show the next slide, please. Now this is page 79 in your character unit. You might be able to see that down at the bottom of the page. But and if you look at this, it says, this is from chapter 4 of the character unit. It says, now that I have it, how do I keep it? And so we're just going to briefly look at a few things on here. In about the third sentence down there, or second sentence, it says, now that you know the basic steps to obtaining a positive character, the question is, how do you maintain it? And so to maintain your character, you must constantly make choices that are respectful and compassionate towards yourself and others. So we need to think about that as teachers of the Peaceful Solution, as teachers of anything, that we need to be compassionate not only towards ourselves. Sometimes it's easy to be compassionate towards ourselves and merciful towards ourselves, and giving ourselves another opportunity. But we also need to have that same attitude about others too. Let's be compassionate towards them also, and be merciful towards them also, and be willing to take the effort to teach them, not just condemn them and tell them where they've gone wrong. And so when something does come your way that's a little less than desirable, or possibly someone not being friendly, you need to work at maintaining your humility. Maintaining your positive character means protecting and guarding yourself from influences and choices that could lead to developing negative character traits. See that? Maintaining your positive character means protecting and guarding yourself from the influences and the choices. And remember, influences come from everywhere. An influence is anything that can affect the way you think, feel, or act. So that's a big deal. It can affect the way I think, really? It can affect the way I feel? No way. And what? You mean it can affect the way I act too? You mean influences are that strong? Yes, they are. And we have to guard ourselves. And look at the little drawing there at the bottom. I've mentioned this before. This is one of my most liked ones, I think. And it shows the young man behind the wall there. He's being bombarded by influences like a rocket coming in. But he has this wall built up to help guard and protect against these negative influences. And that wall is made of respect, honesty, being forgiving, trustworthy, courageous, patient, compassion, humility, and being generous. All these things. If you have all those things, man, you got a wall built up that none of these negative influences can bust through. If you're practicing all those things, I mean, you're well on your way to being I could say you're well on your way to being perfect in practicing the Peaceful Solution. You're well on your way if you're doing those things. So anyways, that's in the character unit. But now back to the respect unit here. I also want to look at, go back and look at page 7. Page 7 in the Teacher's Manual of the Respect Unit. It starts out at the top. It says appreciate people because they have value too. And remember, we talked about values a minute ago and talked about how the high value is life. The highest value should be life, human life, animal life, bird life, plant life. I mean, life itself. We need to respect life, with human life, of course, being right there at the top. So people have value too, and it's very easy to identify why you value your possessions, such as computer, CD player, clothes, etc. But sometimes, however, we place a high value on our belongings, yet treat each other in a disrespectful way. Respect for people begins by realizing that everyone, including yourself, has value. And the peaceful solution, we're taught not to look down on people because they don't have what we have, or we don't, they don't speak like we speak, or dress like we dress, or have the money that we have or don't have, or what have you, Appreciating yourself begins when you realize, when you realize that you are unique. When you realize there's no one else out there like you. You're the only one. So you're not going to be like remade. There's no one out there, and no one has been out there that is exactly like you in every way. There might be some lookalikes. There might be some people who act like you. There might be some people that have the same car as you or live in the same kind of house, but they're not you. You're very unique. And so don't take that for granted. But you're a unique person with many ideas and qualities that can be beneficial to your life and others. And it's a sad thing that people who have taken their own life did not realize this. See, they did not realize. It says appreciating yourself begins when you realize, when we realize that we are unique people with many ideas and qualities that can be beneficial to your life and others. So everyone here, everyone out in the world, everyone out there on the internet, guess what? You've got value, and you can be beneficial to all life on this planet. So don't be self-centered and take your life or anybody else's. You don't have that right. You're depriving others of what you have to offer, and you're definitely depriving yourself too. So this is called self-respect. And someone with self-respect, I don't see how they could, how they could do some of the things that are done. We've all done it before, and we're learning about self-respect and developing that self-respect in our practice day to day. Nobody's perfect at it right now. But people who have self-respect that is based on true morals, and notice it says true morals, positive morals, can develop a positive character and make decisions that'll keep them safe and healthy. All right, so the straight talk. Down at the bottom, recognizing your value as an individual should never be confused with being conceited. So some people have what they call self-confidence and a whole lot of it, and they have a lot of pride, and they have a lot of pride in what they have, or their what some people would call a genius mind and abilities and so forth. But that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about self-respect. We're not talking about being conceited and thinking that you're better than anybody else. There's no one in here in this room or on the internet or out there anywhere that's better than anybody else. We're all human beings. We all have value. The value that you have might not have been noticed by some yet, might not have even been noticed by yourself. So we have to think about this, but don't go past that point of self-respect into getting into that prideful, conceited, self-centered type attitude. So appreciating your value simply means to acknowledge your talents and potential and to make every effort to live up to your potential. You can do so confidently, knowing that your values reflect true positive character. Recognizing your value leads to self-respect, and people who have self-respect are more likely to avoid risk-taking behavior. And this is why I wanted to go back and read this. And if you could show this slide that we're on real quick, down at the bottom there. It says, people who have self-respect are more likely to avoid the risk-taking behavior. You're less likely to take risks. I could name all kinds of stuff, but we could just mention a few of the things we've already mentioned, like taking drugs, taking illegal drugs, abusing alcohol, putting yourself out there on doing crazy things on the internet, or getting in situations that you would rather not find yourself in, and having doing danger to yourself and others. But people with self-respect, they strive to develop a positive character and not to succumb to the negative pressure and influences. Okay, so we've gone through page 31 and 32, and if we'll go back to lesson plan 2, page D, in your respect unit for a minute, we'll move on to procedure number 7. All right, procedure number 7 says to tell students that another important aspect of developing self-respect involves controlling their self-talk or what they say to themselves. This is very important because you can actually be a negative influence to yourself by that negative self-talk. We're going to talk about it here in a minute. But it says, have students read the sections entitled A Penny for Your Thoughts and Optimism, Pessimism, and Your Thoughts on page 33 through 34, and stress that negative thoughts can ultimately affect their choices and actions. So let's go ahead and go over to page 33. Page 33. And it starts out at the top and it says, A Penny for Your Thoughts. Remember, we're talking about thoughts here and what they can do. The negative aspect of what they can do, and also the positive. But we want to focus on how our thoughts control our actions and our thoughts as far as developing self-respect. So another aspect of developing self-respect is to be aware of your thoughts. Aware of your thoughts. Some people say sometimes, well, I didn't really think about it. I just did it. Well, no. I think William mentioned it last class, too, that you're thinking constantly. Just thoughts going in and out, zooming in and out so fast, And so you can't say that you didn't think about it, that you just did it. But what have you been thinking lately? Now, what about that question? Think about it for just a minute. What have you been thinking about lately? What were you thinking about when you came to class? What are you thinking about now? What have you been thinking about lately? Are they positive thoughts? Positive thoughts that help to build and maintain your positive character? And I'm not joking. This is a real deal. If you're sitting there having negative thoughts right now, then you're not having positive thoughts, and the negative thoughts are not going to help maintain your positive character. You need to switch them to positive. The classes we've been through up till now has focused a lot on that and controlling our thoughts, controlling and guarding against those influences that come into our mind. So, are they positive thoughts that help to build and maintain your positive character, or are they negative thoughts that make you feel bad about yourself? Whether you realize it or not, you are always talking to yourself. As it says, always. I guess even when you're sleeping, you're dreaming and thoughts going through your head, but thoughts run in and out of your mind constantly, and this process is called self-talk. And contrary to popular belief, it's not just crazy people who talk to themselves. People who are perfectly sane talk to themselves all the time. So negative thoughts will lead to negative self-talk or self-criticism. Now, criticism can be a dangerous thing. You have to be careful how you use criticism. So you definitely, let me just move on. We process our feelings within our minds. For instance, what do you say to yourself when you make a mistake and you feel terrible about it? Do you call yourself stupid? Do you? Do you say, I just can't do anything right? You know, I've seen people do something like that and then throw something against the wall or break a window or throw a phone down on the ground and stomp it or curse somebody or, you know, threaten all kinds of things just because something takes place and they feel kind of bad about it. But that's not the right way to go. The problem with the negative self-talk is that after a while, we begin to believe what we tell ourselves. If you're constantly saying those things, and I admit it, I mean, I've done it too. I think everyone in here has probably. Like, what a stupid thing, or why did I do that? Man, I just can't do nothing right. I mean, we've all probably said those type of things before, but we're trying to get away from that because you wouldn't want to hear that from anybody else, right? If someone said, what a stupid thing you just did, you don't really want to hear that from anybody, do you? Well, when you do it to yourself, it's having the same effect. Your mind is processing it, and it's going in, and you know where it goes from there, and the multitude of paths and actions it could take. Who knows? The thoughts lead to actions, and actions lead to rewards or consequences. It might not even be rewards that you see right away. It might not be consequences that you see right away. You know, if it's you, you might be thinking, well, where's my reward? I did such a great job. Where's my reward now? And you're waiting for it. You know, and it might be a long time in coming. You know, don't give up. Don't be impatient. On the other hand, you know, someone else might have a thought about you or something you did, and that thought might be something more like, well, you know, when is he going to get his consequence? You know, when is something going to occur to that guy? You know, I've been waiting a long time to see what they do to him, you know. So people can have these thoughts, and when you have these thoughts, you can even have them about yourself, I guess. Negative self-talk can lead to negative actions. You let it build up inside you, you know, over and over and over again. If you don't stop it, it becomes a habit. It becomes a part of your life. It becomes a standard that you set and go by. So negative self-talk, and here's why we don't want to do it, it can leave you vulnerable to these influences that can affect the way that we think, feel, and act. It can leave you vulnerable to the influences that lead to risky behavior. Excuse me. I want to read that again. Negative self-talk can leave you vulnerable to the influences that lead to risky behavior. Well, are you like trying to be vulnerable for risky behavior? Are you trying to do that? Are you trying to be vulnerable to the negative influences that come your way? Why don't you be like the guy we showed just a minute ago with that wall built up of, you know, self-respect, respect, you know, compassion, self-control, you know, all the things, you know, there's plenty more than what was listed on that page, but have that wall built up around you against the negative influences. So to avoid being vulnerable to them, isn't it great that it's telling us right here, all we have to do is stop the negative self-talk. So next time we want to condemn ourselves and say, I can't do anything right, and how silly that is anyway, because you know, everybody does something right, right? Have you done something right today? Think about it a minute. Surely you've done something right today. I mean, you got up and went to work. You came to class. For those of you that are online or sitting here now, that's something right that you did. Excuse me. So you see how ridiculous that statement is that you can't do anything right, so you're lumping it all into this one thing. So you're lying to yourself. And isn't that proof of it right there? So now next time you say something like that to yourself, just realize you're lying to yourself and you don't want to be a liar, so stop doing it, you know? I mean, really. We all do things right. And we all do some things that aren't so right, too. And those are the ones we need to work on, but we don't have to kick ourselves. We've got to leave ourselves room to grow. Remember that? Room to grow? So whether or not you recognize your own value determines much of your self-worth. Too often there will be people who will put you down by teasing you or calling you names. Now, you know, This occurs, sadly to say, not only with children who are learning, how to conduct themselves, but it occurs with adults too. And it occurs with some old adults, people my age. Teasing and calling names. Man, you'd think we could have gotten over that like many, many, many years ago. But maybe we didn't know the peaceful solution. Maybe we didn't really understand, even though probably all our life we've been told, you quit kidding, you quit teasing that boy, or something like that. You quit calling people names. But we really didn't take it serious, and no one taught us the end result. No one had us look at and compare and see, how it could affect our life right there on the spot. And us being the name caller, it doing more damage to us than it actually did to the person we called the name. Think about it. The damage you do to yourself when doing those things. The negative self-talk, the negative talk, it affects you too. Until everyone learns the value of respect and learns to practice the peaceful solution. And remember that value, the highest thing should be human life. So do you really want to criticize and demean? And not, when I say criticize, I mean negative criticism that is not corrective criticism. There is a correction that takes place, and that's when you show somebody what they've done and you teach them how to do it right. So until everyone learns the value of respect and learns to practice the peaceful solution, the bullying, the teasing, and put-downs will continue. There will be enough external forces to chip away at your self-worth without you contributing to them. When you bombard yourself with negative self-talk, you devalue and disrespect yourself. Now, notice it says until everyone learns the value of respect and learns to practice the peaceful solution. So remember what the author of the peaceful solution, Yusuf Hawkins, what he always taught us was that the peaceful solution, first of all, for it to work, you have to take it off the shelf and start practicing it, Yeah, they're nice looking books to have on your bookshelf, Got a nice cover on it and everything. It looks great. But take them off the shelf and use them. The second thing is that, for the peaceful solution to work, you have to have two parties that agree on using the peaceful solution. Now, that sounds like a simple thing, but it's not. There's a way to handle a conflict, and there's a way the peaceful solution teaches how to handle a conflict. And it's not through war or name-calling or rage and yelling at one another. It's not the way to handle a conflict. The peaceful solution shows how it's done, but if one party doesn't use it and then the other party hasn't quite learned to practice a little humility and a little compassion for the person that's yelling at them, and they yell back too, now we got two people not practicing the peaceful solution, so it's going nowhere. Here's two people practicing that you look at, that they're practicing the peaceful solution. Man, look at them. They're learning that peaceful solution. They're learning how to be teachers and everything. And you see them going at it, man, yelling at each other and everything. Isn't that a sight? So think about it. It takes two people, the peaceful solution, to learn and practice the peaceful solution, and practicing and learning the value of self-respect, and learning not to bully, tease, and put down. It takes two people practicing the peaceful solution. So there's going to be enough external forces to chip away at the self-worth without you contributing to them. When you bombard even yourself with a negative self-talk, you devalue yourself and others, notice. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so this slide is out of the self-control unit. Page 47, and I like to show this because all that we just read and talked about, it takes self-control. And you saw me hold up the little sign, stop, think, options, proceed. That ought to be getting pretty normal by now, And we drop back into the other books sometimes because you know why? And I'm going to use the word again like William used last class. It's all synergistic. It all goes together. And see how it works? Look at this diagram right here. Excuse me. This self-control diagram, it says, study the diagram below as a visual reminder of the process of self-control. And this is one of those things where you could like stare at it for, for about 30 seconds or so, and then then open your eyes or turn towards a wall, a blank wall, and you can even shut your eyes, and it's like burnt into your eyes, kind of. If you sit there and stare at that, those arrows will come up again. It's kind of a funny thing, the image of it. You can try it, but it works like this. There is, if you look at the first one to the right there, it says an incident or a trigger. There's something that always triggers these thoughts that we have. Something triggers it. We might decide to think about something, that's a trigger. We're deciding to do it, someone might say something to us that triggers a thought going through our head. Well, what do you mean by that? Or, I wonder if they really meant that. Or, should I go do that now? Or what have you. You might smell something that triggers a thought. And these are the influences. Remember, influences are those things that can affect the way you think, feel, and act. You got to remember that. The influences, man, they're so powerful that it can affect these things. So there's the trigger, the incident or the trigger that takes place, and then you go to the thoughts. And this is where you got to get control of it, man. You've got to get control of these thoughts. If you have negative thoughts going through your head about yourself or others, you need to snap out of it. Snap out of it. You're sitting there thinking about it a little bit and considering your options, and you look at that and you say, is this a negative thought or is it a positive thought? If it's negative, get rid of it. Go on to the positive. Oh, well, he's probably not having such a great day. I'm not going to make it any worse for him. Or, I don't know what that man's been through in his life. What he said to me, I don't need to argue back with him. He's been through a lot more than I have. Think about something positive. Think about a reason why not to fight and argue instead of the reason to fight and argue. Because the reason you want to fight and argue is because of your own desire within to be right and to force your way on somebody else. You think about that. You're trying to get your point across because you want to get your point across. You. Me. I want to force you to listen to my point. The other person might not want to. You can state your point, When it starts getting forceful, then, it looks like you're really wanting to put your point across. But think about it. Think about it. Think about the other guy. Think about what you can do to make their life better instead of what you can do to make your life better only. So the thoughts come, and then there's feelings, and these feelings take place, okay? So you tried to get hold of it, when you had the thoughts, you tried to hold on and get some positive thoughts, but, here we go. You had some negative thoughts, and now you're starting to feel a little bit of this. You got the anger there already because you disagree, but now it's turning almost to this rage. Your face is getting red, and your voice is rising, and it's getting to this point to where now it's going to be a disrespectful thing taking place, and it just snowballs from there. So you got to wrap it up right there and pull back. You got to get control of your feelings. If it's a negative feeling, get control of it. Don't even let it get that far. Take care of it while it's still in the thought process. But if you get to that feeling and you're feeling that way, pull back. Straighten up. Practice self-respect to yourself and others. Because what's coming next is actions. So those actions, you've gone full blast, and you either had positive thoughts and made a positive decision, and now your actions are showing it by being respectful and compassionate and caring towards the person you're dealing with, even though there might have been a little conflict. And it moves on, and what's the consequence or reward going to be? Well, there's going to be a reward because there wasn't a fight that day. There's going to be a reward because now the other person too can look at you and say, that's a person that has self-control. That's a person who has respect. But if it went the other way and it turned into rage and the actions turned into, the yelling and screaming and name calling or, threatening or throwing something or fighting, then there's the consequences. Somebody's going to get hurt, or their feelings are going to get hurt. There's going to be lost relationships and everything, or you're going to have a reward. There's not going to be a reward if you're fighting. It's going to be a consequence. So keep that in mind because it all works together, again, synergistically. They all go together, okay? And I wanted to go to, if you'll show the next slide, please, before we run out of time here. William talked about the positive character traits in the last class, and we don't have a whole lot of time, but I wanted to briefly mention a few of them. The negative character traits are like the opposite end of the scale from the positives. It starts out with being uneducated, and that's making a decision without getting all the facts, jumping to a conclusion. Jumping to a conclusion is negative. It's not positive. Excuse me. Dishonest. That's to maliciously lie, cheat, or steal. Now, do people say things that come out of their mouth sometimes that they're wrong about? Yeah. Did they think they were right about it? Possibly. Did they guess at it and they're wrong? Possibly. Did they guess and they're right? Okay. But dishonest, to maliciously lie, that's to willfully, with malice and forethought, with the idea of doing damage to somebody else or someone or something, but to maliciously lie, cheat, or steal. Then there's revengeful and unforgiving. To want to get even or get back at someone results from not being able to forgive. There's people out there that would never stoop so low as to ask somebody to forgive them for something that they said or did. There are people out there that would never stoop that low, or in their mind that low. And that is not part of anything positive. These are negative character traits, unforgiving and revengeful. And you're only hurting yourself. It might look like someone that does that is, yeah, they're getting even for that, or like they're doing the right thing or something. But it's not right to seek revenge. It's not right to be unforgiving. It's not right to try to get back at somebody. It's just not right. And the peaceful solution teaches against that wholeheartedly. Unreliable, when someone cannot be depended upon. Now, there's a lot of room for improvement in that. I know there is in my life, and there is in everyone's life, probably. I mean, with all these things, we're growing, we're keeping on. And so even those that are revengeful and unforgiving and dishonest and uneducated and unreliable, we still have to look at them with compassion, care, and concern, and show respect to them and help them. Think about them, not ourselves, when these things take place. That's the way to do it, when you're thinking about someone else. Am I perfect at it? No. I'm working on it, though. Impatient, to be restless or short-tempered and easily aggravated. I heard it said, don't hang around someone who's easily aggravated. There's not going to be any peace taking place there with somebody who doesn't practice any self-control and any care and concern for others and gets aggravated and short-tempered. They become frustrated when their desires are not met. Notice their desires. They might not get frustrated if your desires aren't met, but they get frustrated if their desires aren't met. Remember the self-centered, the conceited. That's not what we're talking about when we say, self-respect. Self-respect would be the opposite way. Self-respect would be a person that respects others too and can show that compassion, care, and concern and not just worry about their own desires. Aggressive, capable of violent physical or verbal outbursts, and then disrespectful, lacking care or concern for someone or something. Next slide, please. And for example, let's go to number 8. Hateful,
an intense emotion that results in extreme dislike and hostility. Hate is derived from fear, anger, or perceived injury. Notice it doesn't even have to be real. It could just be perceived. You thought someone injured you. You thought someone was disrespectful to you, which we'll get into that a little bit too, because there is a thing that disrespect can be imagined. You know, it might not even be real. It's just that you thought someone was disrespecting you. We're not going to go deep into that right now, but it's in the pages to come. Excuse me. So an example is given there that some people are raised to believe that people who have a different skin color should be hated. And, you know, what we're seeing right now is that very thing being taught again. You know, for a long time, there's been a little bit of progress here and there over the years where, you know, people of different color have been able to come a little closer together. There's been people of different colors holding different offices that were never held and so forth and so on, and owning companies and you know, billionaires and stuff like that, you know. So skin color should have nothing to do with anything. You know, have people been treated wrong? You betcha. Of all colors have been treated wrong. And anyways, what we see though right now, I think, is when you look at it, there is a lot of things going on out there trying to teach people of one color to hate people of another color when it seems like we're going backwards. So show the next slide, please. Is there another one after that? There you go. We'll come back to that one in just a minute. Attitude is everything, all right? Attitude, the attitude you have about yourself and others, and is kind of what people can see in you. You know, he has a great attitude about that. Or if something took place and they could see how you handled yourself, and they could see that, you know, he had a great attitude about that, even though this thing occurred. So attitude is a very important thing. You carry it with you. If you have a proper attitude, an attitude of positive moral character, and that you want to go that route, then you're going to be seeking to do the right thing all the time, and it'll help you avoid a lot of negative situations. Let's go back to that slide for a minute. This is in the character unit, and it says positive character also ripples outward. Just as negative behaviors ripple out their devastating effects, positive character ripples out positive effects. I want to point out that where it says just as negative behaviors, replace that with attitudes. Just as negative attitudes ripple out their devastating effects, then positive attitude ripples out positive effects. You get that? The attitude, it's noticeable in people. And it is shown through their behavior also. Looking on down, a little bit past the middle, it says, every once in a while there are articles about individuals who choose to be honest, compassionate, courageous, and responsible. And a lot of times these people are called heroes for, you know, returning the sack with $10,000 in it they found on the side of the road, or the wallet they found that had, you know, someone's rent money in it, you know, and where they could have possibly used the money themselves, but they returned it because it was the right, honest thing to do, and being compassionate about others. There's stuff like that all the time that is shown. And down at the very bottom, it says a person might not get an opportunity to be a hero every day, but by demonstrating positive character traits in one's daily interactions with others, one can motivate and encourage others to be positive too. And that's the thing that we need to know about self-respect. If we have self-respect, then we're going to have a positive. Let's show that slide again on the attitude, please, the next one. We're going to have a positive attitude about everything in our life and in others' lives. We might not have our desires fulfilled. We can still have a positive attitude about that. You know, we just need to wait for a little while. Maybe it'll come. Or something occurs that we don't like, or we had a flat on the car, or we had this or that. It goes back to being thankful for everything and having that thankful, serving attitude, because that's what this is all about. The peaceful solution, for those of you out there on the internet and for those of you here, everyone's striving to be teachers of the peaceful solution, it's about serving others. So let's have that right attitude in everything that we do, in every interaction that we have. Is it hard to do? You betcha. If it was, if it was easy to do, lawyers would be doing it. So I don't mean that as any disrespectful thing, but you know, there's a lot of contention. That's what they do. They argue cases. And usually there's a lot of contention, but it's hard to do. I don't know. Anyway, let's practice it, okay? So it's great everybody came tonight, and we hope you come again on 2/12/2023. That's on Sunday. We'll have our next class of the Peaceful Solution Teacher Certification course, and Katan will be the teacher. So we look forward to seeing you. Thank you for coming.